Good morning, my friends. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are you doing today? Good, I'm glad to hear it. Well, today we have a big day. I actually have a friend that came into town from hours away, and he's actually going to participate in our vlog today. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the end of the life of one of the most prolific, one of the most important figures in rock and roll history. His contribution started in 1974. His life, for most of it, was plagued by drugs, but he was a musician that just about everyone that ever met him loved him. And when he passed away, surprisingly, it was a shock, and it really affected a lot of big musicians' lives. Today, we're going to explore the life of Dee Dee Ramone of the Ramones. And not only did he write songs for the Ramones, but he wrote one of my favorite songs called Chinese Rocks that Johnny Thunders also made popular. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. Well, it is a beautiful day out here in Los Angeles. Let's take Jaw for a walk. Then I'm going to go pick up my friend in Studio City. Actually, Universal City. He's able to get a few hours away from his wife and kids today to sneak off and do a vlog with me. Good morning, Jaw. Good morning, Jaw. Good morning, Jaw. Good morning, Jaw. Broken record. Good morning, Jaw. Let's go out for a walk, huh? Well, we're gonna go pick up my friend, and he actually sent me this. He was actually the bass player in Dee Dee Ramone's band, so he'll be able to tell us how he met Dee Dee, what it was like knowing Dee Dee, what the last times were with Dee Dee, and what it was like when Dee Dee died. Let's go find Stefan. Now, Dee Dee Ramone was not just the bass player of the Ramones. He was one of the primary songwriters and wrote most of the most hit songs that you would know. Nice touch here at the Sheraton Hotel. Well, I'm just waiting for him to come on out. Stefan told me I had to come in and check out the lobby of his hotel. He said it's pretty awesome. I was like, okay, he's right. Check out all these great classic movie star photos on the walls. Rock Hudson. Oh, that's cool. Check that out. Yeah, look at this dude. This guy's talking to the drummer of Black Sabbath right now.
Right there. He's right there on the phone. Look at it.
Oh, God. I gotta go. Are you guys doing your thing already?
Well, we're going to start our Dee Dee Ramone story pretty much right here. Like I said, my buddy here knew Dee Dee extremely well. Dee Dee's just such a crazy figure to me because this is a guy who had tattoos all over his body that told all the stories of his life. He did drugs most of his life, but he was a health fanatic. If you watch any of the old documentaries, he talks about how important it is that he needs amino acids and wants to make sure he's getting all the right things for his body, and yet he would do so much to destroy his body. Now, we're actually in the neighborhood where he lived, and even the Starbucks behind me was the Starbucks that he would go to. So Stefan right here was in the band. He's going to tell us some stories right out in front of this building right behind me. Now, the last days of Dee Dee's life, I guess, would be best to start right over here. This building right here was the office of his booking agent. So back in the day when Dee Dee was alive, this was Artists Worldwide, and this was his booking agency. Now that's how Stefan comes into play. Stefan, why don't you tell us how you ended up meeting Dee Dee Ramone?
Well, my buddy, Chuck Burnell, that ran Artists Worldwide, called me that Dee Dee Ramone's looking for a bass player. He said I'd be the perfect guy. So when I got that gig, Dee Dee Ramone was in Germany. He was in Germany, out of the state, and he gave me a phone call. When I got that phone call, I answered the phone. I go, hello? He goes, hi, this is Dee Dee. And I go, hey, Dee Dee, I'm Stefan. I go, I bet you heard a lot about me. And that's how my story started. Let me take you, let's take a walk. Let's come over here.
Now here's the crazy thing. Like I said, this was his booking agent. This is how Stefan ended up meeting him. And literally right around the corner is where it ended, where Dee Dee died.
Yeah, I got the phone call basically that morning from Artists Worldwide's office. And they said there was some commotion at Dee Dee's house. Ambulances were there. So I was like, I called my buddy Christian. He plays in the band Stone Sour now. He's a guitar player. He was playing guitar with Dee Dee and I. and Christian was living. I believe he was living in the building too. So they were like neighbors. I go, you better go to Dee Dee's house. Something probably happened. Maybe he got into a fight with his wife. That's what I was thinking.
Right, and you said he wasn't doing drugs at this time. Now, the weird thing about Dee Dee is that he had entered rehab, and that's where his whole rap career came from. It wasn't like he had a midlife crisis and rap was becoming huge. He said that he was in rehab and they started calling him Dougie Fresh all the time. All the people in rehab would say, there he is, there's Dougie Fresh, Dougie Fresh. And he said, and all the people around me were like beatboxers. So he said, after like 2 weeks being in rehab, I started doing rap. So this guy was a really unique and interesting guy.
He was unique. It was like the movie Ed Wood. I was Ed Wood, he was my Bela Lugosi. He was a great guy, a great friend. And at the time, I was going through a divorce. I had a little kid, and he'd only do gigs on the weekends for me, which was really special and good. If you knew Dee Dee, you would never know it was Dee Dee from the Ramones. He was just a sweetheart guy. There was no drugs in the play. He liked his pot, and that's it. He was really straightforward. So we would do these gigs. Artists worldwide would book us, and this is about the time the Ramones just got into the Hall of Fame. So things were going pretty well, you know. And at this point in the game.
Now hold on just a second, just so we can let people know.
Yeah.
He actually passed away right up there. That was the room that that's
204?
Yeah, it was room 204 inside this building.
Yeah, so right here is where I would stand and talk with Dee Dee about what we're gonna do, plans for the gigs, just talk about nonsense. If I was having troubles, he was having trouble, just guy talk.
Now, like you said, you guys played in the Hall of Fame ceremony with him.
Yeah, we played a party for after the Hall of Fame. There was a party, us, and it was the guys from Talking Head, the bass player and her husband, Tom Tom Club.
Right.
We played Roseland. So we just came back from New York. We did the Roseland thing. We came back from New York, and we had another gig. And right here in this spot, this truck's in the way. Dee Dee never had a credit card, so I would lay out money and whatever for hotels.
Yeah.
I remember money falling in the street, and he's handing me cash. I go, Dee Dee, this is like a bad drug deal going on here. And we laugh about it, but everything was cool. But then when I got that phone call, I'll never forget.
Now you played his last show with him, and that was what, just a few days before he passed away, right?
On a Saturday, the El Rey Theater. It was Dee Dee, Slim Jim, and me.
Slim Jim Phantom from the Stray Cats.
Stray Cats, yeah. And we did 3 songs. Sheena, Rockaway Beach, Blitzkrieg Bop. It was.
So you told me a pretty fascinating story about that last gig and what happened at the end of the night that was pretty eerie. I always find that when somebody passes away, there's always some sort of weird premonition they seem to have. Or like the last time I saw Shelley Winters, she was being wheeled through the hospital at Cedars-Sinai, and I said, hey, I'll come by and see you later. And she said, nah, don't bother. She had never ever told me don't bother, and a week later she passed away. That was the last time I saw her. Tell me what the last thing that Dee Dee said to you that night after you guys played that show was.
There was a couple of things, but I remember he would never share a microphone with anybody. And when we did the show itself, that night he came on Sheena as a punk rocker. He shared the mic with me, so it looked like Lennon McCartney,
right?
Because he was at that time in his life. Dee Dee was getting into the Beatles' "Please Please Me" album. He was playing it over and over and
Isn't
over.
that great? How people are constantly finding music throughout their lives that
over and over. He'd want to do Twist and Shout, add it in his set, but he'd do a Dee Dee style. But anyway, he shared the mic. So I go, Dee Dee, what's up with that? You never shared the mic. And he's like, I love you. You're my best friend. And it was just weird. It was unlike him. And then when we drove around, I remember after the gig he was hungry, and we went by In-N-Out Burger from the El Rey Theater to In-N-Out.
The one on Sunset and Orange?
Sunset, yes.
Okay.
And we were talking, and then he was saying, all my friends are gone. You're my only friend, meaning Sid Vicious, Johnny Thunders.
Right, now you said he and Marky had a strained relationship.
All the Ramones had.
Right, Dee Dee had left the band and then come back and just kind of created a lot of turmoil, at least in the other members' eyes. And even if you see interviews, or at least interviews I've seen, they never seem to agree on anything. If you ask Dee Dee like what he thought of Joey, he would say, well, I think it was kind of sad he didn't get to enjoy all the rock and roll, like he was always sick, he didn't have girlfriends. And then you watch an interview with Marky, and Marky would say, well, the thing people don't know about Joey is he had a ton of girlfriends, and you know, like they could just never agree.
Back's life, it's so odd and crazy, it'll blow your mind. If you didn't know Dee Dee, when he was telling the truth, you didn't know if it was the truth or not. If he was right in front of you, you would never know that was the guy who wrote those songs. It was just an odd situation. He would say to people, we were in Argentina, he would say, you're spies for Marky Ramone, and throw people out like the backstage area.
No kidding.
Wacky like that. He was just really funny. But the Ramones, they had a real strange thing with each other. You know, Dee Dee wrote the songs, Johnny Ramone controlled the band, you know.
Right.
I mean, it was Tommy Ramone who was the real drummer. Marky was really came later.
Yeah.
So that was the week that Dee Dee died. Funny story is, we played a gig in Roseland, and then Marky said some nice things about me and my family. So I was just being a wise ass. I had his phone number, so I kind of prank called him. And
yeah, you're being facetious. He actually said some pretty nasty things about your mom, didn't he?
Yeah, and I'm trying to be polite because it's G-rated.
Yeah.
But if Marky, you're watching it, I made the phone call. It's true. And, you know.
Now, do you want to tell what the phone call was? You don't have to if you don't want to.
I'm all about it. The phone call was, my buddy Kevin was with me. And now Kevin plays in a band, Buck Cherry. He's playing soul, American Pearl back then. And we were working in a phone room, and I go, Marky, this is Al from Atlantic Records. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame, but you gotta remove the wig. The kids are not buying it. We have a record deal, we'll give it to you right now. Who's this? Who's this? Al from Atlantic Records. Marky, when you come to your senses, I'll call you back. We have a deal, just remove the wig. You're a nobody. Who is this? You don't call me and say that. I'm Marky Ramone. I'll call you back, Marky. Hung up. I ended up telling Dee Dee that week he died. We played the show on a Saturday. It was like a day before he died. I go, Dee Dee, I goes, screw that guy. This is what I did because I knew it would get back. Because Dee Dee he loved drama. Yeah. That was Dee Dee Ramone. And he'd go, oh my, he'd do anything to have drama. Oh my, he's gonna sue you. I go, what's he gonna take? My kid? I got nothing. So that was the whole thing. And Dee Dee goes, last message I got from Dee Dee Ramone ever, it was on my answering machine, was, I'm your friend, I love you, I'll protect you forever. Last message ever.
Now, didn't he give you something the night of the last gig?
The night of the gig, we were supposed to play Seattle that weekend. So I got us free guitars from a company called GMP. That's right, GMP Guitars. Cameron, if you're watching, I just plugged the guitar company you sold. Okay. But my buddy Cameron owned it. He gave us all free guitars, and they were loaners. They weren't really our guitars to keep. So anyway, Dee Dee was playing the GMP guitar. That night he goes, take my guitar, you never know what can happen. I go, Dee Dee, I don't want to take your stuff, man. He goes, just take it, you never know what can happen. So I took it back home and just went my way. Right. Next day, didn't speak to Dee Dee. The day afterwards was the Marky Ramone conversation. Right. Then we let it go. Dee Dee's like, okay, I'll work on Marky. You don't worry about nothing, whatever. That was the end of it. Didn't speak to Dee Dee. I was like letting him chill because he was a little wacky because he was Dee Dee. But didn't see anything coming. Didn't see any bad news.
Now, how did you find out? Do you want to kind of recap how you found out Dee Dee had passed, or when you came over here, what that story was? You told me a little bit of it.
The story was, we got a phone call from Artists Worldwide, which is right in this building. Artists Worldwide, something happened at Dee Dee's house. There's cops all in front of his house. The girl that worked there, I think it was Angela Grant, and they happened to see all this commotion. So right away they're assuming it's Dee Dee's house. Yeah. I'm thinking he got into an argument with his wife. The day that he died, the real story is, his wife worked at a clothing store in Melrose called Sirius. Dee Dee got into some kind of argument with her in the morning. That's how he was, whether she was not keeping the house clean, because he was very clean, Dee Dee, and very organized. That time
really, that's pretty surprising to hear.
Matter of fact, he had like an ab machine in there, a little like ab that you, not a machine, but a little thing that keeps your form right.
Right.
He was into painting. We're doing a lot of art stuff.
Right,
So-
right. They've had galleries showing his work since he's passed.
Yeah. So then I'm like, oh man. So then I called up the agency. I'm like, God, did he like beat up his wife or something? What happened? Now the gigs are canceled.
Right.
That's all I thought. And I get a phone call from my buddy Christian and his girlfriend. They were going to go help Barbara out. So when I drove here, they go, you better come here. When I got up the stairs, went into Dee Dee's place. She's walking out, Christian's girlfriend at the time, with a pillow from the couch, throwing it away. It was like vomit, it's such a little vomit.
Oh, really?
He was gone.
Now the way you described it to me is he basically passed out, slumped over the couch, and it looked as though he was trying to find his keys, maybe?
It was like a railroad apartment. So when his wife in the morning, she went to work, she came back, she goes, Dee Dee, he didn't answer her. So he was kind of slumped over the couch. She saw his pants on, but his shirt was off. And when she went to tap him on the shoulder, she thought he was looking for his keys. He was blue. He was gone.
Wow.
And that was the end of it. He just checked out. You know what? He said he's done it all. And if he was ever going to go, he would take a bunch of dope and end it. Was he doing junk that whole week? No, he wasn't.
Yeah, that's what's really interesting is that as much as he did throughout his life, like you said, he wasn't doing any during that time, and it was just like this. It's almost like the River Phoenix thing, where it's like, you know, the tolerance had went down because they weren't doing it on a consistent basis, and then that next hit was the lethal hit.
Yeah, he decided this is the best it's going to be, and he decided to check out because he would say if he was ever going to kill himself, it would be that way. And that was it. And he made comments, you know, oh, his wife, she'll be set, she'll be okay, she'll meet somebody else. But he'd be talking, it was just like Bela Lugosi and Ed Wood. It was that relationship that we had.
Right.
We had a love-hate relationship, Dee Dee and I.
Right.
Rewind the story a little bit. We went to Japan. Me and Dee Dee got into a fight. We didn't talk because he was crazy. I threw an amp at him in Japan. And he basically, I quit, he fired me. I was done. Then one day at Ralph's, we bumped into each other. And he goes, I missed you. Would you like to maybe come back and play? I go, you want me to come back and play? He goes, I missed you. And that's when I got back and played. And it was that year. And it was those last gigs. And then we got to become friends again. And then we checked out.
Well, let's go visit Dee Dee over at the cemetery. What do you say?
Let's do it.
And that second balcony up there was his balcony. Stefan was just saying that Dee Dee loved to stand right here and look straight up Highland Boulevard. Right up this street actually is Hollywood Bowl, but he also mentioned something really interesting because Dee Dee actually originally had lived for a long time in this building right down the street down here, and he just told me something funny or something interesting that Dee Dee said to him.
Right back down that road, that's where I first met Dee Dee Ramone. So I'll take you over here. And at the time when I first met him, I really didn't know Dee Dee well. I had a 65 Mustang, and I liked the oldies station. In New York City, there was a radio station called 101, CBS 101, and played all oldies. So when he got in, he was waiting outside. When he got in my car, the Ronettes were on the radio. And then I remember Dee Dee going to me, oh, I like your car. And then he goes, the Ronettes, they're wonderful. That's Phil Spector. He's going to be in trouble one day. I go, what do you mean, Dee Dee? He goes, he held a gun at me. Oh, he's dangerous. One day he'll be in trouble. You'll see. And that was it.
That's right.
Fast forward the story. I would play a club called the Cat Club in LA every Thursday night.
Where I met you, yeah.
That's where I met Jordan. And there'd be different people always coming in. So Lana Clarkson used to come in to the place with this girl, Pumpkin Pie. She used to bring a bunch of people. And fast forward that woman, Lana Clarkson, was killed by Phil Spector.
Right. And you know what's funny is if you read up on just about everybody that worked with Phil Spector, they all had a story like that. Leonard Cohen was chased out of the studio with a gun and told he couldn't come back for the rest of his session unless they needed him to sing anything. So yeah, it's like pretty much anybody that worked with Phil Spector had a crazy story.
Crazy thing. So Dee Dee's, you know, his premonition was the truth. Dee Dee loved these skull rings, the Keith Richards skull rings, and actually that ring, this is not the Dee Dee Ramone ring, but the one that was his ring, same exact ring, my buddy Christian has it from Stone Sour. And at the time of his Dee Dee's death, Dee Dee said to his wife Barbara, if anything ever happened to me, take the cash out of my wallet, take my jewelry off, because the cops will take everything, keep it. Dee Dee was always suspicious of the world. So that ring, she took off his ring right when she found Dee.
Now we're gonna walk over to the chapel where they had all the funeral ceremony. Wow, take a look at this. It's like a car. I don't know who's buried here, but this is interesting. They have a Winnie the Pooh, and then this luscious tombstone, but no names. It's very unique. And right here was where they had the ceremony. This is where the funeral of, well, as Stefan said, both Betty Blowtorch Bianca and Dee Dee Ramone.
I mean, right here is where Dee Dee Ramone's funeral, ceremony, whatever you call it, funeral, or wake.
Yeah.
But out here, you gotta remember, it was the last of CBGB's was here in this room.
And not only that, but CBGB's, their whole life was, I mean, it's thanks to the Ramones. The Ramones said in interviews that at the time they came out and started playing, Maxwell's was where everybody played, but you could only play there if you had a record deal. So they found this dive bar called CBGB's and just saw they just saw like the potential in this dive bar and turned it into a scene.
But just picture sitting in these seats right here, you'd see the guy from Blondie, you'd see the guy from the New York Dolls, you'd see the remaining surviving members of the Ramones, Johnny, his wife.
Didn't Dee Dee live with Blondie at one time? I think I saw an interview where he said that they had a scam going on, like they were getting free government housing or something, and so he would crash with Blondie.
Yeah, right here you had Arthur Kane, Johnny Ramone, Tommy Ramone, who's not known, he passed away. Johnny Ramone passed away. You had C.J. Ramone here. Legs McNeil, who wrote a lot of punk rock iconic books.
Yeah.
Vera, a lot of people who've seen the scene. And this is where it all came to an end.
And this was the same type of car, if not the same car, that took Dee Dee down to his final resting place. You can see the Hollywood sign back there. Look at all the lip. I mean, that is a loved man. Now, he was just telling me, he said, the reason that it says, okay, I gotta go now, is that's what he would say whenever he was getting uncomfortable and wanted to leave a situation. So he's been telling us a few stories. Stefan, what was the story you were just saying about the tombstone? What was originally, or what was offered?
Well, you know, when people pass away, you're not thinking so straight, but when at the time of his death, when they were going to put a tombstone, before they had this, Ampeg was going to make this originally an SVT bass cabinet. So,
and that would have been his headstone.
That would have been, yeah, and that would have been from Ampeg.
Now, I was actually telling Stefan that my very first trip to Hollywood Forever was to see Dee Dee Ramone. He had just died, and when I came here, there was just a small little square, a little white piece of paper that said Douglas Glenn Colvin on it. Now they've done it right. Look at this, I mean, it's beautiful. And he actually had the funeral and ceremony at the chapel here.
But this is where we all sat right after here.
So yeah, he's saying that this is where they had the ceremony right here. They had all the chairs laid out here. Sad.
And then they had us all draw pictures in the ground of a cartoon of Dee Dee.
Oh, really?
It was only like small, it's like about maybe 20, maybe 30 the most. So we drew some pictures, threw it in there. Actually, I was a pallbearer. And me and my buddy Christian and Anthony, the guys that played with Dee Dee.
Right.
We had Arthur Kane from the New York Dolls was here. He spoke.
Wow.
Legs McNeil was at the
That's
funeral.
a crazy story too. Like the New York Dolls, that was kind of like, that was a big part of Dee Dee's life too. You know, he wrote Chinese Rocked, which was part of Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, and he was involved in all of that. He said they would force him to go get drugs even though he was in the Ramones. He said in an interview that that it was like Johnny Thunders would basically say, hey, you got to go get us drugs. That's what you have to do in order to hang out with us, to be seen with us. And he's like, wait, I'm in the Ramones. I don't have to do anything for anybody.
Now there's two stories about that song. Nobody knows who really wrote it, Johnny Thunders or Dee Dee Ramone, but there's two different endings.
Well, the lyrics say, hey, hey, is Dee Dee home? I mean, that kind of feels like...
There's two different situations with that. But,
do you want to tell us?
I don't know who really wrote it.
Well, what did Dee Dee ever tell you, whether he wrote it or not, or what the story was?
He says it was his song. Him and Johnny actually were going to do a band together, but then they got into a fight, and then Dee Dee put bleach or something on all their, I think, one of somebody's clothes, and it ended up the gig never happened because of too much drama and turmoil. But he did say one thing. I think the singer was going to be Stiv Bators, and he goes, now you're making me remember old stories. When I travel with Dee Dee and do our gigs, Dee Dee would always unpack his clothes really neat and put it in a drawer.
Oh, like as if he was at home.
Yeah, I go, why are you doing that? I go, we're only here for the night. He goes, I got that from Stiv Bators. It's something that I always started doing. Johnny Ramone was at the funeral. CJ Ramone was at the funeral. Funny thing is, nobody knew Johnny Ramone was sick at the time with cancer.
Really?
So I remember Johnny Ramone when we were all over here after everybody was leaving. He was standing right here, Johnny Ramone. Right here. Now, we didn't know if he was, I just thought he was just maybe because he never had closure with Dee Dee.
Right, you thought he was meditating or contemplating or something?
Maybe he was thinking about himself.
Right, because his grave is just right over there. Now, you said he's not actually buried in there.
It's just a statue, but I guess he's buried in that direction. But this is where he was looking, I'll never forget. That's a vivid memory I have of him looking and standing right here.
So Stefan's saying that Dee Dee's mom was sitting right here.
The band guys were here.
And a lot of his tattoos, he actually said, were about his mom. Fights or arguments with his mom about various things. Like one of them he was showing on his elbow. He said, oh, this was like she wanted me to take the dog with us somewhere, and I didn't want to do it. And so I thought, like I went on tour and I got this tattoo of this dog, and I thought for sure, she'd find it sweet and everything. And I showed her and she said, well, it doesn't say my name. And he's like, oh man, I can't win no matter what I do.
Well, he made it sound like he had no relationship with his mom. But his mom actually was a very sweet lady. His ex-wife Vera was here too as well.
Yeah.
Now here's the crazy thing.
A lot of tattoos about Vera on his arms as well, he said.
Now Dee Dee died in June, so prior to that, Dee Dee and I were playing like the Cat Club on Thursday. Sometimes he would come play with me in West Hollywood. My buddy Huck Johns was here, so he was hanging out with me around that time too, so Huck would remember a lot of this stuff. But in December that time, I was playing like a corporate party for Alice Cooper somewhere, and I remember my friend Bianca talking about, her relationship problems. And then I said, you got your whole life ahead of you. And then Bianca ended up passing away, and Bianca is actually right here. So I went to a funeral from my friend Bianca, who passed from Betty Blowtorch, in December. And she was awesome person, Bianca. And then you go in June, you lose your friend over here. That was a crazy year. Bianca, her ashes are actually in a Kiss lunchbox because she was a
really?
Yeah, she's a big eBay person. She was eBay before anybody else. She was really into
So she collected a Kiss lunchbox, and
Kiss was a favorite band.
And so you said that her ashes are actually in a Kiss lunchbox.
Yeah, and it says Bianca, born to love, live to rock. And yeah, she was cool, man. She was cool. She had that coolness like Lemmy or something. Great documentary about Betty Blowtorch I just watched.
Well, in your own words, Dee Dee, I gotta go now.
I gotta go now.
Well, gang, that's pretty much going to do it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing this today, and I want to send a shout out to Lori McCarranan and Tracy Dowell for making contributions to my channel, and a big thank you to Stefan Adika for being part of the vlog today. I mean, he was the vlog today. I don't know if many of you remember the story, but I mentioned that when I first moved to Los Angeles in 2000, I went to music school and I got a job at Tower Outlet on Hollywood Boulevard, and one of the people that I worked with used to go to the Cat Club every Thursday night, and one night said, hey, why don't you come to the Cat Club with us? And I said, I'm only 18 years old. And he said, yeah, but I think if you just go in the back entrance where the valet is, I don't think anybody will card you. I've never seen him card anybody. I went with them the very next Thursday. That's how I met Stefan. And now 18 years later, he's in a vlog of mine telling the last days of Dee Dee Ramone. So thank you so much, Stefan, for making this possible, letting people hear your story. And if anyone didn't know that much about Dee Dee Ramone, I certainly hope this piqued an interest in your life, and maybe you'll go check out Hey Hey Is Dee Dee Home, the documentary, or watch some of his interviews, or just go listen to his music. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great night, and goodbye. And bless you, Dee Dee Ramone.